Hey, how you doing? Seen you in a minute. What's going on? My name is LJ. What's going on today, people? Today I thought I'd do a story time, and I talk about my basketball history. And I didn't really talk about my basketball journey, except for that one time in the video of my story time about the '97 squad. Look cool. It's up, it's up there somewhere in the corner. Look it up. Click the link, check it out, then you know what I'm talking about. So, when I first was introduced into sports, I was introduced at a young age. My mom introduced me into sports. Most people would think it was a male figure in my life, but no, it was really my mom. I didn't really play basketball until later. I played football and pretty much any other thing a young kid would play out running around in the neighborhood with other young children. But I kind of started gravitating towards basketball later, as I would say later than most people. I started playing basketball around 13, 14. Most people back then would say LJ had a shot, he didn't know how to dribble. It's funny. I ended up clearing up that situation later. But when I was introduced into sports or basketball, I learned by watching. Me and my mom used to watch basketball all the time. I'm talking about all the time. But yeah, I was introduced at around 13, 14. I don't understand how I had a shot because I couldn't dribble for crap. I knew the game though. I started out watching the game. I feel like if you watch the game first, before you start playing, you can start seeing things as you get older. I have learned over time that the more you mature and the more your understanding of the game is, the more the game slows down, the more you can see things that you wouldn't be able to see when you first look at the game. It just looks like a whole bunch of running around and just randomness. But if you actually know the game, you will see there's patterns. People be doing this and that. So I started playing, and when I finally started playing, I think I was in Florida, but at the time I was moving back and forth from Florida to Mississippi. But I used to dribble the basketball. Like I started out dribbling right-handed because at the time I didn't have any left-handed people to show me. Yes, I am left-handed, but I didn't have any left-handed examples to show me how to play. I always saw right-handed people. So that's how I learned how to shoot. That's how I learned how to dribble. But once I understood that if you can learn how to go both ways, then that's when you're dangerous. So I started dribbling everywhere with my left hand. And it's funny because my left hand is my natural hand, but at the time it was my weak hand. Now it's 50-50. So, but I used to dribble everywhere. And it got to a point where everybody who used to see me with that ball would try to steal it from me. And once I learned how to make sure can nobody steal the ball, I knew that then that's how I got my handles right. And there was times I used to dribble with a tennis ball doing little dribble drills. How many times can you bounce it in one hand and this hand, and how high and how hard? How many times can you do it between the legs? All them little drills you do with the actual basketball. So when it got to an actual basketball, it was easier because the eye-hand coordination was fine enough to at least control how to dribble. There came a time where I started getting better at playing to the point where now I could play with people and pick up games 21. Everybody know when you first start learning how to play, the more you play 21, the better you become, especially with just regular skills, jumping, shooting, timing, stealing the ball, all that kind of stuff, the interaction with people. You also learn bad habits because it's a lot of like fouls and there's a lot of people that's like traveling, a whole bunch of dirtiness. You learn how to trash talk, you learn how to do a lot of things in the game when it comes to street ball. And the main thing what happens is if you can talk the talk, you gotta be able to walk the walk because people are gonna test you all the time. That's exactly what happens when it comes to street ball. They're gonna test you. So you could be the quietest person on there or you could be the loudest person. Somebody's gonna test you just to see where you at. Especially on the basketball court with your skills. So the more I watched, the more I played, the better I became, the more things I started looking at, and the more curious I became, and I became a student of the game. I started watching people, of how they played. And like if I would see something that I liked, I would like take that little piece and like try to figure out how to make it mine. But it's the same move, I just make it mine, make it into my own way. Like everybody who has a crossover, most people crossovers are different. It might look the same, but they're different. It works, the mechanics work a little bit different than everybody else. It's funny because every time I took a break from playing basketball and came back, once I got better at ball, my crossover always was different. Like sometimes it was, the first crossover I got, it was kind of rough. It was more of a carry. I kind of like, now when you first learn it, you like pick the ball up, it's so a carry. Then I actually learned how to do the crossover right, and then it became a whole nother beast. My brothers and family members used to call it the wiggle. They said, man, why you always do the little wiggle and get past people? I started laughing. I don't know. But the wiggle was my own little move, but it was a little move that I came up with watching NBA players, watching other people. My crossover came from watching people at the street ball course, watching NBA players, Iverson. I could have tweaked it to do the Iverson crossover, but I also learned how to do a more effective, efficient crossover that they wouldn't call a carry or whatever, because at that time Iverson was holding that thing like this, and yeah. So once my game started getting better, it was time for me to start looking at how to become a better scorer. At the time, I didn't really. It wasn't like I didn't play defense. It was just I was learning the game in stages. You know what I'm saying? Like most times when you learn the game, the first thing you learn how to either pass the ball or dribble. Most people don't go straight to shoot. Some people do. Depends on who you are. I learned how to shoot, but I was more focused on dribbling. And once I got my dribbling down, I started working on my shooting. And I started moving into different areas of shooting. Like I was in the paint doing post-up moves. I had countless hours of post-up moves on. I spent a lot of time practicing all that stuff, especially the post stuff on the dirt courts, because that's when I was living with my pops and I was like getting better. You know, I was trying to learn how to get better. It's funny because when I moved with my pops, I was like, man, I'm pretty good at basketball. I'm feeling myself. I met my cousin Raphael, man. This dude, I think Raph was 3 to 4 years younger than me. For that whole time, I don't think Raphael for a while. The first couple days, the first couple weeks I played him, I couldn't beat him. I couldn't beat him in basketball. I could not beat him in basketball. That really caught my eye. I was like, hold on. How could I not beat him? Like, I should be able to beat this guy. And I couldn't beat him. And I started seeing things, like he taught me a lot of things about basketball that I don't think like he even realized. Growing up, man, when I grew up, AAU wasn't a big deal. You know what I'm saying? It was they had the camps and everything, but you had to be pretty much a superstar in high school or whatever, or some like incredible person that all the right people saw. There was no social media, there was none of that stuff. So back in those days, if you could get runs on the street ball court, man, that was pretty much the top of the fame for you, unless you played for the school or for some kind of league that had any kind of justification to making a name for yourself. For me, at those times, it was not always easy because basketball was not the forefront. You know, growing up, you didn't always have everything, so some stuff had to take backseat. Basketball was a backseat thing. I played every day, but I didn't get to do the stuff that I wanted to, like, you know, go to the camps or just go to the summer basketball camp. They used to have basketball camps in the summertime at the rec centers. And I will always want to go to those camps, but we just never had the money to do it. And, you know, I understand. You don't have it, you don't have it. You know, life comes before wants, you know. So when I finally did get to go to one of the camps, I knew everything the dude had talked about. I just didn't put it in the same words he put it in. And I was like, I waited all this time to get to a camp. I finally get to a camp, and this is what we're learning. I thought I was gonna learn something that was gonna be different. You know what I'm saying? That's what the camps is for. I didn't realize that by me watching the game and by me playing in the game and already knowing so much, that I was ahead of the curve. I didn't know that until after a while. You know, once you get older, you realize it. But when you're younger, you don't really realize it.
Been the underdog fan, a Cinderella man. Can you coach your team to the win? What's the game plan? We passed the Final Four, get in the game, man. We have to fight back, yeah, make a stand. Kentucky versus Texas.